Welcome back to CBS Sports HQ, presented by Geico. Within the last 24 hours, we have added 2 new head coaching vacancies. There are now 8 in the NFL. Of course, with Bill Belichick and the Patriots parting ways, that job is open. Pete Carroll moving on from the head coaching position. He will still have an advisory role there in Seattle, but that head coaching job is open. Mike Vrabel has been rumored and that name has been tossed around when it comes to the job in New England, but the Tennessee Titans, they have to fill his spot. Commanders, Panthers, Raiders, Chargers, and Falcons, also the jobs that are out there. So Lige Douzable made a list. He ranked all the vacancies for us. Number 1, he has the Chargers, and all the way at number 8, he has the Panthers. This is the least desirable place to go as a head coach. DK, Lige back with us here because we are going to go down the rankings, starting at the top. We're going to go there, and then we want DK. We want your input too.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Can't wait to get a hold of this list.
Always fun. Let's start at the top, though, guys, with the Chargers, because obviously Justin Herbert comes up. He is a bona fide franchise quarterback that you have there. But of course, there's the cap space conversation of it all. Lige, why is this your number 1 spot?
Well, Jacqueline, when you look at this whole entire list, the one team that has a bona fide franchise quarterback is the LA Chargers. Now, to your point, they are in cap hell, so there's going to be a lot of work to be done. They also have to hire a new GM, so that's the benefit for the new head coach, right? The new head coach and GM will ultimately work together. They'll probably get along because it will be a new GM, but for you to win in this league, DK, you got to have a franchise quarterback. So a lot of these other teams on this list, they're going to be starting off from square one in regards to potentially drafting a quarterback or maybe going to get a bridge guy. Well, with the Chargers, you don't have to worry about that. You got your guy for the future. But you see it right there. They are in cap hell, right? They're $34 million over the salary cap. They'll have to do some restructuring to really retool this roster. The defense was awful, even though it was led by a defensive-minded coach. But when you have Justin Herbert, whose right arm has been blessed by the gods, you have a chance to win in this league. So, to me, this is the most attractive job because they have their quarterback in place.
At least they're not the Saints, who are the worst case in the salary cap. You know what I've noticed when I watch the NFL and I hear these cap numbers? There's always a way out of it.
Oh, no question.
There's always a way out. There's always redemption to get out of there. They can figure it out. You know what I find is much harder to figure out? The quarterback position. Even if you have the number 1 overall pick, look at Bryce Young. I thought it was going to work. Granted, questions about his size. And look, we fired a coach, halfway through the season. The quarterback is the most important position in the game. Stating the obvious. You know what you've got, and you've got him under contract, speaking of contract issues. So you can figure out all the rest. I had the Chargers number 1, 2 for Justin Herbert. And also you mentioned Brandon Staley. One of the reasons he was fired is 1-possession games, a lack of success. So they're close. Just can't get over the hump. You can be the coach that punches that ball through and gets those wins.
So I think the Bolts are fairly consensus at number 1. Now, we haven't polled everybody, but I think that's the thought process there. 2 is where things get interesting. There's a wide variety of differencing of opinions here. So you like Seattle in the situation that Pete Carroll's leaving whoever fills his shoes.
Well, when you look at the Seattle Seahawks, they have a lot of foundational pieces. 2 young bookend offensive tackles, 3-headed monster at receiver, Kenneth Walker III at running back. And then you go to the defensive side, right? Devin Witherspoon was a home run hit, right? He looks like he's going to be an all-pro in the future. Jordan Brooks is coming back from the ACLs, played really well. So you have some foundational pieces there. And then even if you feel like Geno isn't the guy, he's a bridge guy. So if you do draft the guy, he can be in place for a year or 2 until that guy is ready. There's been a lot of talks lately, right? Will guys start changing their mindset in regards to not playing their first-round quarterbacks right away? When you see a guy like Jordan Love and Patrick Mahomes have the type of success that they've had. If you look at the Seahawks also, Tommy, right? Back-to-back winning season. So you're coming in to a franchise that went to the playoffs last year, was 1 game away from going to the playoffs this year, and has set a real culture in that locker room in Seattle. So to me, this is the second best job because they have foundational pieces. Even if you do draft a quarterback, you have a bridge quarterback right now to have success.
I don't hate it. I said I want to get after your list. It's sort of at the bottom of the list. This one, I think you make a really good case, and I totally agree with you on all of them. Strong front office. They've done a good job drafting young talent. You mentioned some of the core pieces they have there. Geno Smith already under a cap-friendly quarterback when he signed last offseason, so you don't have that issue. And I agree with you. I still like Geno Smith. And if you don't, you can draft somebody young. He could be that bridge guy, good veteran to mentor. Everything I hear about him is spectacular about just doesn't care about the limelight, doesn't care, but just wants to win. That's what I want in my quarterback. So I agree with you. I think the Seahawks are a really good option for a head coach.
Okay, let's have DK get after the list, because the farther we go down, the more discrepancies that we have. Okay, so 7 on your list, Lige, is the Patriots. The most recent opening, of course, huge shoes to fill with Bill Belichick. But DK,
I had them at 2. I had them all the way up there as 2. Yes, I had the Patriots as one of the best jobs available. One of the things I think you have to have is a winning culture. They clearly have a winning culture. I also think you have an owner that will do anything, and a good owner who will give you every opportunity to win and succeed, whether it's facilities, whether it's private planes to fly on, anything, any resource will be at your disposal. I also look at the clean slate that you get to start with. One of the issues that Bill Belichick had was the lack of success as general manager, probably led to the end of his tenure in New England. You get to start fresh. We mentioned in the other jobs, you could possibly go in at the same time as a GM. I think that's a fresh start. And you've got some money to spend. The roster isn't very great. Quarterback is a massive issue, but you can go solve that in the draft this year and start building around him. You're also going to, I think with that comes a pass year. Like, you're going to get a free pass year 1 with a young quarterback. You start to build, although I don't put the Panthers in that one. But I think that's a reason why the Panthers are unanimously the worst option available, because they have dysfunctional ownership. I think you got a really strong ownership culture, a really good foundation to start working with.
DK, I put this at number 7 because whoever takes this job is following the GOAT. Do you know the pressure that comes along with following Bill Belichick in New England? And you talked about some of the deficiency. This is a talent-deficient roster. So, yes, you have about $75 million in cap space to spend, but you got to do a lot of spending to bring people to New England, because that roster was awful. We talked about it. Bill Belichick is a hell of a coach, but he struggled as a GM in some of the picks that he had in first, second round. Cole Strange comes to mind. I liked him a lot. Thought he was a second, third round pick. They took him in the first round. Tyquan Thornton was a third round receiver in my eyes. They took him high in the second. So he really struggled making some picks. So this is a talent-deficient roster. Yes, you have a lot of money, but there's added pressure when you're following the GOAT. So that's why I had him that far down the list. I know what you're going to say. You can't be scared when you go somewhere.
No, I wasn't going to say that. It's not like he rode off into the sunset with a Super Bowl. Like, there's a lot of New England fans who are ready for change. So for sure. I agree with you, like, over the course of time, it's impossible to fill those shoes. But right now, fans are eager for a change in New England, which is wild, but it shows you the fickle nature of fans.
I was going to say, if you circle kind of back to the Bill versus Nick thing. Nick still had a really good Alabama team knocking on the door.
Correct.
So those shoes and those expectations, I think, to your point, a little higher, because there's a couple losing seasons. Buffalo's won the division. But we do know the whole, like, hey, we'll play for the full rebuild, play for the long game, Daddy, might not always work out in the NFL.
Exactly.
We'll wait to see. All right, guys, great stuff.
Tommy's a genius.
I'm not a genius. I want to let everybody know about the Pick Six podcast. Of course, scan that QR code. It is your daily NFL podcast. Will Brinson, Katie Mox, and the Super Friends, and a litany of guests, including our guys here on this set. Nick Saban called it a career early Tuesday evening and sent shockwaves around not only the college football landscape, but the entire sports world, really. His 7 national championships, most all time, won 6 of them in Tuscaloosa with the Crimson Tide, spanning 17 seasons. More notes here on Nick Saban, only head coach to win a national title in 3 different decades. Every 4-year class Nick Saban coached at Alabama won a national championship. 8 CFP appearances, that's the most of any school, and 3 CFP titles under Saban, also most of any school. Let's check in with Gary Danielson, SEC on CBS for many years, and also calling many games involving Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide here. Gary, great to be with you here as we still continue to sort of digest the news that Nick Saban's calling it a career. What stands out to you the most about what he's been able to accomplish?
I suppose the ability for Nick to marry the needs of the players who wanted to use their career in playing college football to move up to the next level to play in the NFL. For the major schools, the Alabamas, the Texases, the Ohio States, the Michigans, the type of players you recruit are all looking to move to the next level. His ability to take those dreams and hopes and marry it to the team and keep them involved in being good teammates keep their eye on understanding that as the team did better, it was better for them. I think nobody has done it better. It's a very complicated formula. A lot of coaches can't handle it, but Nick was a genius at it. And I think his experience in the NFL and some of the coaches he worked under, he used it very wisely.
And that's evidenced, of course, by the SEC championships and the national championships. Take us through kind of behind the broadcast lens, because what we see on the field in interviews isn't always what is behind closed doors and the access that you're given. What would you tell us in terms of Nick and the assistant coaches that will now be branches around college football?
Yeah, Nick was unique. You know, I've done close to 500 football games in college, and 100 of them have been games with Nick Saban as head coach, whether at Michigan State, LSU, and of course the last 17 years at Alabama. I guess at CBS we did about roughly 90 games for Nick Saban. And I think, at least it was my philosophy, Nick wanted people to be prepared, whether it was the people that were working in his organization, his assistant coaches or his players. And I kind of took that to heart. When I went in there and did an interview or a production meeting with Nick, I made sure everything I did, I stuck to what my job was. It was football. He liked to reminisce about the NFL. We usually tried to warm up the room by talking about that. Both Vern and Brad Nessler were really good at it. We had some great sideline reporters, just lately Jenny Dell, that were really, you know, able to connect with Nick. But I think my job was to make sure I was prepared. I had to watch film. I thought all my questions had to be related to what I saw from his team in the past, what I saw from the team coming up. And at least I took it as his appreciation that every question that I asked him, I didn't expect the game plan from him, but every question I asked him was football related. And I think Nick was all business, and it worked best for me that way, because when we got out of the room, it always seemed to be fun. He is, around his players, he's different than what he is in the press. And I think part of the growth with Nick Saban from Michigan State through LSU to the Nick Saban that we've seen maybe the last 10 years, he's become more comfortable with the media, handling TV interviews and handling production meetings that we were a part of over all those years.
Gary, before I let you go here, whoever the new head coach coming to Tuscaloosa, obviously walking with high expectations, but what do you think that person is walking into when they get in the building at spring ball and fall camp to get ready for a new season?
Well, it's really hard to imagine. You know, I mean, you better be experienced. I think Nick would believe that you have to have NFL experience to sell the players that what they're teaching at Alabama is not just there to win at Alabama, but also, as I started out this interview, it has to get them to improve to be NFL players. I guess I saw that their amount of money that his players have made has been over $2 billion. And of course, you have to handle the expectations of following the greatest college football coach ever. Very few guys that can handle that. It's going to be interesting. The names that are out there is the names that I would think of. They all are really good coaches, but it's going to be a challenge.
It will be a challenge.
I would add one, though, to it.
Sure.
I would add D'Amico Ryans to that list. He's an Alabama player and thought of very highly. And just to throw that out there, that's one of the. But I think Mike Vrabel is a name also that, with the connection with Bill Belichick, guys with NFL experience that were great college players. And of course, D'Amico played at Alabama.
That's a very interesting thing to end on, Gary, because we're on set with Danny Cannell, and one of the candidates, or at least people that he thinks, D'Amico Ryans was on that list as well. Gary, certainly appreciate it. Thank you for the insight.
You got it. Appreciate it.
Gary Danielson joining us. Make sure to catch Late Kick with Josh Pate, who taped a Nick Saban podcast. You know, Gary's talking about the NFL part of that stuff. There was a note from our research team that under Nick Saban at Alabama, 44 first-rounders to the league versus 29 losses with the Crimson Tide.
We're going to keep the conversation going. What is next for the Tide, and who is going to replace Nick Saban? Now, Dan Lanning saying, hey, it's not going to be me. I'm sticking with Oregon. We're going to discuss with DK and Lige coming up.